Hey, everybody. Welcome to What Drives Us, episode 397 for December 30th, 2020, the last show of 2020. My name is Russell Frost, and I have the pleasure and honor to be your host with this incredible panel. See how many times I can hit my mic tonight. With this incredible panel that I'm gesturing too much. So let's introduce them and get this exciting year in review show on the road. My co-host, she is a director, a writer, and a voice actor, Georgia McKenzie.
Hey, everybody. And hey, gorgeous panel of people. I'm so glad to see everybody here. We're all alive. We made it.
Oddly enough, that is worth celebrating, right?
Yeah.
That is so worth celebrating. This has been a year.
Yes.
I just want to point out that we still have more than 24 hours to go.
Shut up, Mark. Don't bring me down.
There's that sunny Canadian winter optimism. And that is Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the end of the year show. We will see if we will make it to the end of the year. I'm pretty confident. I'm at least 99.9% confident.
I'm just going to point out, if the asteroid falls, it's got to land on Mark first for saying it. I'm just saying. Bring it up. You get the first smiting.
Watch out. It bounces, though.
I'm okay with second.
I'm trying to imagine that in FX terms.
It
I was going to say, who's the closest?
It doesn't exactly bounce as much as it throws up debris from underneath where it was.
And that man making a very salient geological observation is our friend of the Mid-Atlantic region, Mr. Casey Green.
Hey, if you manage to get a vaccine, you should probably wait till you get the second part and an additional 14 days before you go out and do anything dangerous. And even then, wear a mask.
Yeah,
Yes,
even then wear a
please.
mask.
Don't lick any doorknobs.
And our friend who is on the show not often enough, in my opinion, we like to think of him as the president of Canada, but oddly enough, he goes by John B. John!
Hey, everyone. Great to be on the show. Last one of the year.
And
I second Mackenzie's celebration. We made it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, speaking of celebrating, let's celebrate that our friend Mr. Patrick Connor is here.
Hello, everybody. So, like Mark said, we have more than 24 hours to go. But as soon as we hit that 24-hour mark, the song that's going to be going through my head, 2020, 24 hours to go. 2020, 24 hours to go. 2020 will only have 24 hours to go very soon.
Exactly.
Depending on what time zone you're in, you're already there.
That reminds me of all the memes that have been popping up about like extra seconds, extra hours, extra innings of 2020.
Oh, no. No extended, no,
24-hour mark. We're going to count down the.
I'm going to double tap 2020
it's like the clock. It's like the my favorite one is the clock is at 23:59, and then it ticks over 23:59 and 59 seconds. It ticks over. It's 29:60.
That's beautiful. 2961, 2962. And last and certainly not least, he is the owner and founder of Boulder Hybrids, oddly enough located in Boulder, Colorado, Mr. Paul Guzik.
Hey, everybody. Happy end of year, and I'm celebrating early with a red IPA.
Oh, there you go.
Cool.
I wanted to celebrate with a beer, but I couldn't find one that was suitable. That's what kind of,
rum cake.
They don't have beer stores in California? Or?
well, they do, but I went and I just, me, I'm picky.
You couldn't find dumpster fire stout.
I couldn't find. No, you know what? This is funny. So this is just. I'm going to say this and then I'll respond. But
crackhead lager. Or?
Yeah, no. A friend of mine on Twitter, a poster named Gigabear, posted this beer that was like, it was me to like 5 decimal places. It was so wonderful. From Stillwater Brewing in Baltimore, a Japanese extra dry beer finished with grapefruit. And I'm like, oh, I want all of those. But no, I would have to be in Baltimore, probably at the owner of the brewery's house to get some of that. He apparently bought some a while ago and squirreled some away. And I'm like, yeah. So
Well, that's because the drink of 2020 is Everclear and nuclear radiation juice. That's what it really is.
spent fuel.
No, it's Clorox.
Yeah. So the whole point of this show is just to talk about this year and to talk about next year rather than going over the news, which, you know, Tesla's still making cars, their stock's still going up. Ford may or may not be making some electric cars. We won't know until next year or the year after. Let's just talk about. So you know what? I'm going to go because I know, because I asked, because he has a list. I'm going to let Patrick kick it off with one of the things he wanted to talk about, and we'll see where we goes from there.
Yeah. So Russell, when he introduced the show, said we're not going to do the normal news cycle. It's going to be more just a roundtable chat, and that got me thinking about what were the most important things in 2020 in the alt vehicle space. And I'll cover mine, and then I kind of just want to throw it out to the panel to what you guys think the big moments were. I was centering it around transportation because of the topic of the show. But hey, you know, there's no reason that you have to restrict yourself as such if you don't want to. So for me, 2020 was a really monumental moment when I think a lot of the world woke up that EVs are going to be the future. And we had SPAC mania. SPAC is the special purpose acquisition companies. And a lot of EV companies came to market this way. And there was a lot of crazy hype around it. And that doesn't mean those were good investments. Don't take investment advice from this show. But it does mean that it reminded me of the 90s and the .com, which ended in a .bomb, of course. But if you invested in the right companies, then, you know, Google and Amazon, there was a whole lot of money that went into those. Some of them crashed and burned, the Pets.com or Webvan or whatever. But it put money into that industry and fueled the modern internet that we have now that allows you to watch this video on the internet, and for all of us to even do this, because that infrastructure was put in place because a lot of investors are willing to fund it. And I think that's what's happened here for EVs this year. That was the big thing for me. What do you guys
No
think?
one cared.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think Patrick is right. The thing is that there's nothing built without risk, and that's the truth. You, as an investor, have to understand, don't invest anything you're not prepared to lose. This is just like giving stuff to your friends to borrow. Don't let them borrow something that you're really going to be pissed off if they break it or lose it, because once it's out of your hands. But if you're willing to make that investment, yeah, you know, if you're willing to make that investment in a company that you believe in, hopefully it's going to work out. It might not. It is a real, I wouldn't even say 50-50. It's when you consider, I was part of that .bomb, and I actually worked for a design firm that specialized in IPOs. That was almost all we did, was offering advertisements and IPOs. So when that crashed, that wiped out the company, because those were 90% of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and I had told them 3 months before or 4 months before, I was like, maybe we should diversify. And they were like, no, market's fine. I was just like, okay. But that's the thing. It's a risk. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, but you do want to find what you love and something that you really believe in if you're going to invest in it. Because there's a big difference between taking a semi-guaranteed, solid, stable stock, or a bond, a market bond fund that, you know, it's not really focused on an individual company. And then there's buying a piece of a company that you think has a future, a long-term future. So go for it. Just make sure you're prepared to lose it.
Yeah, in moderation if you're going to go for it. don't
Yeah.
don't
In moderation.
yeah, don't put the
Don't go all in.
money on there or your retirement fund or whatever, your kids' college. Make sure you're doing it with, hey, I was going to take a vacation this summer, but COVID happened, so now maybe I'll just invest this. And if it goes up 10x, awesome. If it goes to 0, well, okay, I didn't take the vacation anyway.
Yep. And if it's not money, like if it's like equipment that you're loaning to somebody, you should probably make sure it's insured, make sure they're insured, get a loaner or rental agreement if it's that important. Otherwise, treat it like money. Like, hey, I might never see this thing in one piece again.
I'm nodding.
I didn't mean to derail that, but I mean,
I mean, I think Patrick's point's well made, and I just, not to denigrate it in any way, because I agree completely. But I mean, it's obvious we're getting to that point, and it's a good thing that we starting to. I don't think we're anywhere near that tipping point yet that so many EV activists have longed for, where EVs are the easy decision and not the tough decision. But we're getting there, and that's good. It's nice to see progress. 15 years ago, it was a wholly different system. We didn't, we didn't have a lot of things. Paul, you look like you're
Yeah, I
ready
would want to say something.
go.
Even though Patrick said don't invest or don't take investment advice from the show, I've got a couple of tips that you could take advice from. One is do not invest in any company that appears in the same paragraph as the next Tesla or Tesla killer.
The Tesla of yachts. I'm probably not going to invest in that.
Or whose first name is Faraday and last name is Future.
Was there a bigger self-immolation this year than Nikola?
I think they were the big one.
It was a big one.
Burnout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fisker's back. He might be able to flame out again.
Oh, he'll
Maybe.
definitely flame out again.
but he's been back immediately after he got kicked out of Tesla, and then he was pretty much back as soon as the dust settled on all the Fiskers that caught fire in the Bay. After Sandy pushed salt water into all of their systems, and they lit up in New York.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're still waiting.
I was going to say, what's the timeline for the ocean? Like, is that still on track?
Maybe.
Yeah, he was going to use the ID4 as the basis for that, and then even put that out in a press release, to which VW said, "What? You plan on doing what? No one told us about that."
Where are you getting these ID4? Yeah.
Whoops. and the Fisker Karma is no more. It's now the Karma Rivera, and then I think they renamed that even. So that
They did?
I mean, it's still the same car, but it's not. It's a Chinese company now. It's not Fisker.
Right.
Yeah.
Do the exhaust pipes still go right into the passenger compartment?
I don't know, but they did finally fix that razor blade front end. It looked like a knockoff of the Mach 3, Gillette Mach 3.
Yeah. I mean, Karma's kind of tried to carve out their own niche, super high end, super expensive, very customizable. You can get the car in like 1 billion different colors with all these weird little options and all that. I mean, they're definitely to a group, whatever, more power to them. God knows rich people need more purchasing options. Okay, please save the wealthy of the world. They need more things to buy.
That's what they tell us.
That's why
Isn't that what the GLS 600 Maybach?
I'm sorry, Georgia.
It just made me crack up. Never mind.
Okay, sorry. Timing is everything with humor, isn't it? It is.
Yeah.
Mark, I'm going to go to you. You got anything?
I do. I've got a kind of an end of the year story. It kind of dovetails with what Patrick was saying as well.
Oh, no.
This article came out via Electric on December 29th. And this is a study that happened in the UK with 2,000 electric car drivers that responded to the survey. And the question they were asked was that since you've owned an EV and have had one now for a period of time, what do you think the chances are that your next vehicle will also be an EV? And what happened was that basically only 1% of that polling crowd said that they may go back to a gasoline car. The rest said no thanks to gas, and they would be sticking with EVs going forward. So this is kind of that organic grow that we see happening in the EV industry and have for some time. Many panelists have indicated that once they go EV, it's really tough to go back because you lose so much that you don't want to go back. And this study of 2,000 UK drivers it backs that up. And I know that in our own association here in Waterloo Region, that would be REVA, we've pulled that question at many of our meetings, and 100% of the people will never go back. And this is where that exponential growth, I believe, is being helped, and we continue to push those numbers up.
Yep. In my personal circles,
Sorry, go ahead.
in my personal circles, I've seen two actually go back, and I think that they got into it with unrealistic expectations. Like, you can't have a 300-mile commute with a Model S in the wintertime when they first came out and expect that that is a reasonable use case for the vehicle. It is now that they're supercharging and they have the 400-mile range to start with, but back then at 260 miles, it wasn't realistic. So they were I don't know what they were going for, but everybody else who's like using the car as intended, including myself, it doesn't make any sense to go back. Like, I keep getting these comments on some of my videos like, oh, I could fill up a gas car in 5 minutes. I'm like, I could fill up my electric car in no wasted trips and detours and money out of my pocket.
While I'm sleeping, while I'm doing other things. Just to tie into what Mark said, so Kia Canada did a survey as well. So this is the opposite now. So because the article that Mark's referring to is a survey of EV owners. What Kia did is a survey of just Canadians in general, not necessarily electric vehicle owners. And then what they found is that 51% of Canadians would consider purchasing an EV as their next vehicle. More importantly, 47 of those surveyed still would not consider an EV due to the misconceptions of, lack of charging infrastructure or long charging times or range or cost. So it's kind of like, like Mark said, once you own one, once you realize that it works for you, you're not going back. The other big challenge is getting those people to try it, because again, that same survey, so 51% said they would, 47 said they wouldn't, and I'm guessing that the remainder is probably the unsure. But of that same survey, 82% of them never drove an EV. So you're taking, that percentage of roughly half would do it and half won't, but the majority of them have never driven one. So it's kind of like, you got to put it in the hands of the consumers. You got to have test drive events, once this pandemic is over. Like, you gotta put it out to the people and say, hey, look, this is how it drives. This is how torquey it is. This is great for city driving. This is great for maneuvering, right? It's quiet when you sit at a traffic light. There's no noise, that sort of thing, right? And just get people to understand that it's not just about environmental footprint and all that. It's just a nicer vehicle to drive.
And I've had a number of customers who think an EV will work. They buy like a Nissan Leaf, and then the pack degrades, and they don't go back to gas car. They get a Bolt or a Tesla or something with a bigger battery, and they're still believe in the technology. So I think if the manufacturers are smart, we said this before, they got to get people's butts into the driver's seats to experience it. And once they drive it, and once they realize there's a charging station in their neighborhood and everywhere they need to go, that's going to change the culture.
You're exactly right,
I think
Paul.
that's true.
I mean, in my case, the solution to my Volt always turning on 1 mile from home, warming up the engine without providing any propulsion whatsoever, and then turning the engine off when I plug the car in, it wasn't to go back to gas or another hybrid.
Right.
It was to get a Tesla.
Right.
I could have gone with a Nissan Leaf or something, but there was a used Tesla that was a great deal, and that's what I went for.
And what we're trying to do with electric cars is break people out of what's familiar. And I don't know if you've noticed, but people will fall back on some weird ass shit to stick with what's familiar, as opposed to what's better for them. And all it is getting them into the car, letting them experience having the car, riding in it, how it handles, and the idiocy of like, I can fill up a gas tank. Well, what if you just plug it in overnight and you're asleep? You don't have to do a damn thing. It's, oh my God, it's already filled. And then it breaks through and they can finally say, you know what? This was a nice starter car. I'm going to go for something bigger and better next time. And I think overcoming that is what's going to open up the market. The more people use them, the more they're going to want to have them. And that's just what it is. Which is why I'm feeling pretty good about the candy.
I like the candy.
Yeah, and I think like so plug-in hybrids still play a role because I know they're not full electric; they still have a gasoline engine. But the idea is, if you can get more butts into the seats, why wouldn't you push for something like that, right? You don't expect people to make the big jump. Like not everyone's going to jump in on the deep end of the pool. Some people are going to wade in from the shallow end, and why not guide them with a plug-in hybrid, which lets them fall back to something they're familiar with, and then they'll realize, hey, I don't use the gas tank very often. I can do this, right?
It's an excellent gateway drug, John. Exactly.
Exactly.
It's something, and that's exactly my case. I went from a Volt to a Tesla because of that exact reason. I loved the range I was getting with the Volt, but I wanted to go further. I wanted to go a little bit further than what that car would allow me. I wanted to go on longer trips. When I went on a long trip, I wanted to be able to charge quicker. So those things were the Achilles heel of the Volt. But other than that, the Volt was a great car, but it was a gateway drug for me, which allowed me to step up with my next purchase of an EV, looking for that longer range and that quicker charge.
And
Exactly.
to that point, I think Mark and I both got the "your gas is too old, we're going to burn the tank" message, right?
Yep.
I probably will get
And
it
Mark,
this year.
Speaking of trips, you probably have done the longest trip of anyone here on an EV, right?
Yeah, I drove from Kitchener, Ontario, all the way to Russell's house because he was there. I
never
up.
saw him ever.
I got photos, Russell. I got photos.
Nor did I sit in his car while we supercharged at a Target in Mira Mesa. So
That's right.
And then drove up to San Fran and then back to Ontario. So it was.
And how long was that road trip? Miles?
That road trip was about 10,000 kilometers. So over 6,000 miles.
I have an image to share.
Uh-oh.
So,
Oh, there we go. I saw that
Yeah.
today, Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
yeah.
All right, so maybe Casey's in the running for longest EV trip, but
I don't
Mark
think
did
that was
it all
one
like
trip.
Mark did it in one go.
Yeah.
11
Oh, wow.
days.
11 days.
11
11
days
days.
you did that?
My
Yep.
goodness.
That's
Talk
insane,
about getting the
dude.
butt in the seat.
11 days round trip or
Round trip.
round trip? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah,
That's
it's
hard.
basically 3 days for the big travel across the continent each way.
I complained about doing like 8,500 miles in 30 days. Ooh.
I don't know. I completely enjoyed it. I would do it in a second again. I really
I
would.
would too, but
Especially in January in Canada.
Yeah. And anything to get out of Ontario in January. Yeah. But no, it was seamless with the supercharger network and it was very enjoyable.
wow.
Oh, so I'm going to share this again and describe what we're looking at. So
Uh-oh.
what this is the lifetime trip recorder of my Model X and 2,000 miles of my Model S. So as I'm driving along, they're just streaming telemetry, and there's a service that is actually available to collect them all. It's called Teslafy. And so each of those red dots is a charge. There are maybe 5 or 10 level 2s in there that aren't my house, and 1 or 2 DC fast charges, maybe 4. Everything else is a supercharger. And when you look at it, like we're talking 50,000 miles and almost 20 megawatt hours with a fuel cost of just $2,000. Can you do that with gasoline? I mean, I don't think so.
No,
I mean, you can make the trips, but I don't think you can do them for that economical.
not $50,000. 50,000 miles. No.
Yeah.
I think most people's annual fuel bill in Canada will be about 2,000. More if you own a truck, less if you own a Civic. But say on average, yeah.
Okay. I got
Nice.
one that'll at least give some of our viewers a chance to drink.
Oh,
It's December 30th, 2020. How many Tesla robotaxis are there on the whole planet Earth?
maybe one in prototype.
Maybe one.
Maybe.
Maybes don't count.
Yeah.
Well,
Zero.
I don't have the insight inside the company to know what their prototype situation looks like.
I don't
Well, yeah,
care.
so it's not in public use. So I'm gonna go with it's 0. And
Okay.
and we one of my blog posts is going through the March of the Nines and talking about how you can get to 99%, and that seems really good until you hit that 1% case, and then it's horrible.
It's like, oh
And
crap!
so that's sort of where we're at right now, where there's this FSD beta, and you can see some videos of it doing some incredibly awesome stuff. But that doesn't mean that it's time to take a nap in your car and remove the steering wheel. That means it's time to start filing off those edge cases, and there's going to be a lot of them. How do you
Yeah.
deal with construction?
One of my favorite
and-
is where the car drives itself into a road that's not finished yet, and it doesn't have room to do a U-turn, and it's not allowed to back up yet. So it's like it throws up a saying, it's like "Help me," and the little message is like "Help me." And so this was Dirty Tesla, and it's like he had to put it in reverse, turn it around, and then he could turn it back on again.
Right. So humans are really good at understanding the world and what they see, and usually very good about navigating it, but certainly not always. So
And not all humans.
yeah, depending on your distraction level, your inebriation level, your driving experience. I think it's going to be 2025 at least before we see robotaxis on the road. And other people are more optimistic, and others are more like it'll never happen in my lifetime. So I think 2025 is a reasonable middle to handle all of these edge cases. But we'll see. I don't expect it next year. I think next year they'll be able to show some really awesome stuff. Maybe even that LA to New York drive, and they might even deploy some of the Snake chargers at some of their locations to support that. But it'll be a demo, and there are. As long as they call it a level 2 system where you have to have an attentive driver behind the wheel, they're going to roll out new features, and we've seen it with stop signs and stop lights and other stuff. So I think there'll be a lot of great improvements. I just don't think they'll be robotaxi ready by next year.
I suspect that the first time we'll see anything that meets the promises of the robotaxi will be in the LA tunnel in a couple days. But I think that if we get there in the real world, it'll be a demo car at the end of the year next year. Maybe Elon will call it, and it'll drive him around wherever he's demoing, and then he'll go back, and then they'll call that, hey, mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished, we know, has very negative connotations.
Yeah.
Of victory
it
too
was
early.
the perfect cherry on top of that far too rich dessert.
Yeah, I agree with you that they'll probably have the robotaxi, not the robot. They'll probably have Teslas running in tunnels, fully autonomously. But that's not the real world, right?
Yeah, that's big whoop.
That's why I broke it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, I would definitely.
They've had trains at airports running in tunnels for 40 years.
Right. Yeah. So I would not.
Autonomously, yeah.
I think that's absolutely doable next year, and that alone would be really cool. but I wouldn't
So-
call that a robotaxi.
Le-
So
le-
my question with the FSD then is, since they're getting ready to give it away for 3-month trial, are they going to
Ooh.
are they going to give away what we already have now, where the car just changes lanes and exits the freeway, or are they going to step it up and give us some version of what we've seen with these safest drivers, and let them try that for 3 months? I mean, I don't know that what we have today would sell somebody on a subscription or a $10,000+ purchase.
It's not
after
about
a
that,
3-month
Casey.
After a 3-month trial.
It's about pumping the stock and pumping some sales at the last minute. It has nothing to do with the actual feature being offered.
True.
I think it can be both. I think they can want to sell more cars to meet their numbers, and I think they can want to roll out a really cool feature that they think if you give someone, first one's free, that
Yeah.
they're going to want to buy it.
Okay.
There are a lot of people that really, really love autopilot, and having the car drive for them, change lanes for them, it's awesome. When you turn it on and you let go of the wheel and it does stuff, it's like magic. And some people are gonna like go, wow, my 3 months are over and I want that back. That was so awesome.
I'd only pay $4,000 for it.
Right. And some people will have a threshold of, okay, it was worth X dollars. If the cost is below that, I'll buy it. If it's not, I won't.
So wait, and the price was supposed to go up, right, to $100,000?
I
This
don't know
year?
I don't know that he said there was a ceiling, but he did say it was going to continuously go up. And then I bought
Hmm.
it, and then it went down over $1,000 for over a year.
Casey, you might be the person that we have those stock warnings about. Okay.
And then finally this year it reached parity with what I paid, and then went above it. Just months ago, it finally went up above what I actually paid for it, and the functionality has been increasing. It's had regressions, it's had improvements, but now I still feel like they owe me $4,000 more of functionality, and I am excited to see what that looks like. But as like, if you offered me the car today and said, hey, here you go, you get 3 months trial, and it does what it does today, I wouldn't subscribe, and I don't know that I would buy it at the new price, no matter how cool it was, until I could see more.
I mean, if the cars have the hardware already in there, they could do lots of different pricing models. They could do a monthly subscription.
Mhm.
They could do a per trip. If you want to
That would
use
be
it
cool.
to drive to the city, it's $5, and
Yeah.
you can elect to pay for it, just like a toll road.
Hey, Mark, I hear you're going on a trip between Canada and California.
California.
$100.
And you
Oh,
could
okay.
turn it on for
Use the
11
robotaxi.
days and pay for 11
Yeah.
days, and
Yeah.
take a nap the whole way.
Yeah. So they have announced that subscriptions are coming out next year, early next year. But they haven't said what the pricing structure will be. Will it be an annual subscription, a monthly subscription, a daily subscription?
Per minute.
We'll find out real soon.
See that timer
The
ticking?
meter's rolling like
Uh-huh.
you shift
Like,
in and
it'll
it's
be
like a taxi meter.
Well, I'm going to stick to my Star Trek theory of this kind of stuff. Even numbered releases don't
communism?
suck. So if you guys want to go with the 1.0, I'm going to wait for the 2, but I'll probably wait for the 4.0 for any kind of auto taxi. I'm going to let y'all be the betas on this one, because I'm not going to give up that kind of control of a car to drive that. And I'm going to also point out that I find it curious that so many companies, especially ones that started off with ride sharing, are very interested in the auto taxi, the autonomous driving.
You can fire the
software
Mechanical Turk.
development. Yeah, and it's like we really have these kind of service jobs now, giving people the money they're surviving on pandemic wise, while the companies that are basically using their labor and using their cars without adequate compensation, and I stand by that, are also now seeking to replace them.
You're
Investing
training
in
your
ways to replace
replacement.
I will remind everyone once again that my theory of tech moguls is always, you do realize the umbrella company and was basically trying to create a labor force that they didn't have to pay, and then we got zombies. So
Bezos dragon meme. Insert it right here.
yeah, right there. You know?
Did,
So
speaking of did anybody see the holiday video from Boston Dynamics?
The
Yes.
dancing
Yeah.
Do
robot
you
song?
love me?
dancing
Thank you.
robots.
Yeah.
That was wow. That's all I
I
have to say.
mean,
Wow.
Not to
I
go
also
all-
watched a holiday dancing video with a group of very blonde white women, and the robots actually beat the women on the rhythm. So I'm gonna have to give that one to Boston Dynamics. They had much better hip movements, and they were actually in sync. I watched
To
6
the beat.
women, and not one woman could actually hit the beat, and I was surprised. Very disappointed women.
My question is, will the robots look as cute when they have the guns in their hands?
All I know is I am really polite and nice to my Google because I want it to stand up for me when it finally takes over and say, no, she always says, please and thank
Please
you.
and thank you.
So you know, I'm keeping this one as a good human pet. That's what I'm standing. My robot overlord already understands. I am nice to you. Y'all better be nice to your Alexa.
And you've got the 10 digits.
That's right.
Somehow I think that's actually good strategy.
It is.
I'll throw it open. Anybody? John?
I want to complain about.
Casey?
Go ahead.
Yes,
Like,
I want to rant about the stupid noisemakers that they've co-opted the deaf and blind for, and blame their laziness in training the dogs to listen for tire noise. And the only reason I say that they are throwing us for a loop and lying to us is because if it was really all the shit they're saying, it would also apply to really quiet gas cars like Rolls-Royce, Bentley, and any other luxury quiet automobile that is lower than the threshold, not just freaking hybrids and plugins. I've been saying this for years, and now we've got freaking ringtones at the stoplight, as I warned that we would, when we could have had silence instead. So this is more dangerous because now they're listening for the cacophony, and they get hit by rolls.
But you go to heaven if you're hit by rolls. So
Maybe.
I don't know.
Well,
No.
you know, if you get hit by a Rolls Royce Ghost, he might turn into.
Are you reincarnated as a wealthy person instantly? Just like, boop, like Mario or something?
Oh, that might be fun.
If
You
you're
know,
reincarnated as Grey Poupon.
Yeah. So I mean, if you take their argument at face value, yes, I agree with it. But when you look at the fact that it's a matter of them not wanting to spend the money to train the dogs correctly, and then the fact that they aren't applying it evenly, that's what gets me spun up.
I
every
agree with
single
Casey.
time.
They should have said, if your car emits this level of decibels or less, you need a noisemaker. Doesn't matter what kind of power is the car.
Right.
But-
And then that would have covered all the EVs and
Right.
some of these other high-end quiet cars that are
Yep.
just as much of a problem.
But it's all been a scam to try and depress EV and hybrid sales. And it always has been since it
That's-
started
that's
many,
my
many
allegation.
years ago. As
More
Yeah.
than a decade. More
It's
than a
like
decade.
this,
Yeah.
I
the
allege
states
that.
that have higher registration fees for EVs and hybrids.
It's like my utility has proposed a new rate in South Carolina to charge us a solar subscription fee for.
what?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, you didn't put that thing there.
No,
didn't
the,
pay-
the
you didn't-
convenience fee.
No, they're not calling it. They're saying a whole solar subscription fee, as if they installed the sun there, and I'm using their utility.
Yeah.
Those are my panels. I paid for them in full. There's no loan or lien against them. I paid for them out of my own pocket. They're not putting the power there, and they're not actually transporting the power anywhere. It's freaking South Carolina. It's hotter than the dickens. The power comes off my panels into my house. Whatever's not used by me immediately goes into the neighbor's house, and it's done.
Mhm.
so, you know what, Patrick? I want to. You're an engineer, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so you're a smart electronics guy.
That's what my degree's in, but whatever.
We've never actually. I mean, like I've always had this idea that I knew. So
So
I wanna-
Casey
I
should
wanna-
be charging them a solar subscription fee.
Yeah, should be the
I
other way around.
well, I want to blow something past you that I had a customer give me one time when I was doing Tesla, when I worked for Tesla.
The Tesla Solar.
And this person always start, and you get a lot of these customers when you're selling solar, you get a lot of these, but it always starts off with, I'm an electrical engineer. And right. So right away, you're automatically, like, the defenses go up, the eyes glaze over a little bit, because most of the time when that's the first thing out of their mouth, they're cranks. Anyway, dude tells me this. He says the problem with solar is this, and nobody realizes it, is that solar generated electricity introduces bad noise into the system, and there's no way to filter it out. So what you have is you have all these little power plants introducing trashy signal into the grid. Does that make any freaking sense to you?
From a DC power source and a pure sine wave inverter?
Right. So all the inverters have strict requirements.
Right.
And they have to generate it in phase. So that means you have to have an incoming signal or they shut off. So for most solar systems, if you have a blackout, your solar panels won't work.
Right.
And that just seems like weird. Like, hey, why shouldn't I be able to power my house from that? Because they can't synchronize with the grid. And they also have very strict requirements on the sine wave, that it has to be a pure sine wave. It has to be able to exactly match the frequency of the incoming signal. And there's codes to cover all of that. So he's full of crap.
Basically a crank.
Yeah, he's completely not right.
The only way he could possibly be even close to right is if you took an off-grid, do not connect this to the grid ever warning signs, big old exclamation marks, even though they probably meet it too. And it says do not connect it, and you connected that, maybe.
Yeah, some cheap inverters and cheap generators make really ugly sine waves. They're more square than sine. And those cause all kinds of noise. And there's a lot of devices that you can't plug into them. They just won't work. So yeah, those things are crap. And if you're out camping in the woods and you just need to run some basic things off of it that have no problem with that ugly wave, no problem. If you were plugging those into the grid, you would have a huge problem. So he's got like some bits of truth connected to some other bits of truth that don't connect. And yeah, he's wrong.
A crank.
Yeah, because if you were to try and hook that to your house, you would then disconnect your house from the grid. So there's no way to feed that shitty power back into the grid.
Right. And when there is a blackout, like you don't want to backfeed into the grid because someone could be up on the line working on it and you could end up electrocuting them because the power says their home base says that the power's off. And of course, you always treat it like it's live, but things happen. And so that's why all these inverters have that. That's why they shut off. That's if the power goes out, they have anti-islanding features that make sure that they don't feed the grid when they shouldn't. It's all fine. Yeah.
You need an auto transfer switch and a really good generator or a power wall. I think even if you have a generator, the panels will still shut down. That way they're not triple feeding your house.
So,
yeah.
Anything else we want to talk about in 2020 before we talk about 2021?
While we're on the topic of utilities,
please.
A few weeks ago, I mentioned the big utility in Colorado, Xcel Energy, was going to the Public Utilities Commission to get funding to build a charging network. They wanted $110 million. Well, I think it was last week, the state said, okay, you can spend $110 million building a charging infrastructure for the public, and you can charge every electric household in Colorado basically $1 a month to pay for it. So even if you don't own an EV, you're contributing to the EV infrastructure. And then they're going to probably charge people to use these charging stations. So they're getting it coming and going, which is kind of evil because they're a big evil utility. But it is kind of good that there'll be lots of public chargers available in the state of Colorado. And, maybe if people realize they're paying for it, maybe they'll buy an EV so they can use it.
That's right.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way about the Electrify America thing. This was supposed to be VW paying a fine, and instead they're rolling out this network and then charging people to use it. Well, okay, well, if this is supposed to be a fee, why is it that you get to roll out infrastructure that you try to make a profit off of? How is that a penalty? That sounds like a business opportunity.
They gave them a forced business opportunity. They're now second in the U.S. only to Tesla for deployed stations and everything. Yeah.
You kind of just described every corporate penalty for the last 12 years.
Yeah, right.
Basically.
penalty
Yeah,
becomes
yeah,
business
you're going to
opportunity.
jail, but you're going to the country club jail for 6 months instead of 20 years.
And you get to
Right,
keep all your
yes.
money.
Would you like
Yeah.
caviar or escargot for lunch?
Snails.
But at least in this case, it does achieve the desired result of cleaner air, and
Access
for the
to charging stations.
access to charging stations
Yeah.
for the deployment of EVs. So I mean, it's better than just the money disappearing. But
Yeah,
I mean,
because like if you have a traditional fine goes to the government, that money can go anywhere, right? So it's better,
to oil.
you put it into a charging network that people can see and say, hey, look, all these stations are popping up that you claim that there's a lack of infrastructure, and here they are. And I applaud them for going straight into a high-powered DC, right? Instead of, they could have easily just said, okay, we'll just put a whole bunch of 50 kilowatt stations, but he didn't, right?
3.3. That's all you get.
3 point, yeah, L2s, yeah, level 2s. That's all you get.
Yeah, I would have preferred that they just fined VW and then gave all that money to a nonprofit like Adopt a
ChargePoint.
Charger or somebody, instead of having it be VW ran, where they can have this subsidiary that they get revenue from.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Hey, any more 2020 look back? John, Mark, Georgia?
No, just now when you asked me, I was just going to go right into 2021.
Okay, John, then you start us.
Well, I guess it's more of a question for the group, right? Like what's the vehicle that you're most looking forward to? Not necessarily to own or anything like that. Just in terms of the EV marketplace, like what's the vehicle that you guys are most looking forward to?
Oh my God.
What's that?
I think
It was an Aptera.
Ah,
I think
Also my Cybertruck. That's probably the next year after that.
when the RAV4 Prime ships in quantity, I think that's going to wake a lot of people up. Because right now they're still unobtainium, and that as a plug-in hybrid is the gateway drug to Toyota having a full EV
Everything.
RAV. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Having
in
driven the
Canada-
RAV,
that car ticks all the boxes, at least in Colorado.
having driven the RAV4 Prime, believe me, if you've never driven an EV and you get in that, it's going to blow your mind. Yes, I know a Tesla would too. I'm not saying it's better than a Tesla. What I'm saying is that for like $37,000, it's a pretty amazing vehicle.
And you can drive anywhere without having to figure out where to plug it in.
And if
Right,
you find a
and a-
plug, you can still plug in and save gas.
exactly.
Right. And a lot of people, before they have an EV, they think, oh, there's no infrastructure. Well, you get something like a plug-in hybrid, you're not worried about infrastructure, but then you also
You
find the
Start
tools
noticing them. Yeah.
and you start
Yeah.
seeing them. And yeah, there's a whole cognitive effect. Like, if you go and buy a certain brand of car, then you see them everywhere. Well, they were there before, you just didn't notice them. And
Yeah.
so now you're going to, get the PlugShare app or the ChargeWay app, and they're going to have maps with all, and you're going to like, oh, hey, this store I go to has one, but it's on the side and I never noticed it. Or it was right in front and I never noticed it. And now you're going to see those. And then, like we said, gateway drug. I think that's a great one, Paul. That's definitely going to be a game changer.
Yeah,
And then you
I
also
agree. Yep, sorry.
you also notice then that 40 miles is enough. You don't freak out when you see 40 miles on the gauge. You're like, oh, that's
Right.
enough for me to go shopping
That's
all
an
day.
average day for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. People feel like they drive 100 miles because they're stuck in traffic or whatever, but it's not quite.
Yeah, I
that.
don't think people go by time, right? Just like, oh, it took me an hour, but they don't realize how long how far they go in that 1 hour.
Right.
I know in Canada, definitely it's the all-rounder, right? It has all-wheel drive, which again, marketing has done a very good job here in Canada. Ticks that box, right? The competitor to Escape plug-in hybrid is only front-wheel drive.
Yep.
Also, the way that our EV rebate structured, the RAV4 Prime gets the full $5,000 rebate federal, but the Escape doesn't. It gets the $2,500 because the battery is just a few kilowatt hours short of the threshold. So
Clever.
bigger discount there. Of course, in Quebec, it's 8,000. So that's total 13,000. In BC, it's another 2,500. So it's 7,500 here. Like you said, 40 miles, good enough. And, the people who buy it are probably buying it to save on gas. So like you said, like Patrick said, they will actively look out for these chargers and then realize, oh, they're all over the place.
If they even need them. I mean, they could be like Mark and I, where they don't need them. They go home to work and do their errands, and they get gas once a quarter, once a year, whatever Toyota forces them to do. I mean,
Yeah.
But if you're going to go to the
Paradigm
mall and
shift.
watch a movie and there's a charging station there, and while you're in the movie for 2 hours, you can top up your battery. Why not? You know.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a fun
It
game.
changes the paradigm for people. Like it really opens their mind up as to the possibilities that you do start to do these crazy things like look for a charger, or you know, if you've got the PlugShare app and you've been to a local mall and it says there's 2 chargers here, all of a sudden you're looking for them. Because before you didn't care if they were there or not, but now you've got a device that can actually soak up a few electrons and save yourself from driving on fuel for another number of miles. So it all starts to clue in, and as someone mentioned earlier, that you're not driving 100 miles a day, but you don't comprehend that when you don't have an EV. When you have an EV that's limited to 40 miles or less, you're counting the miles because you're watching the speedometer tick down. Oh, look, I got 38 left. Oh, I got 25 left. Oh, I got 5 left. And you start to understand how much energy you use to drive a certain distance. And it all starts to clue you in as to what you're using and how much it costs. Whereas before in a gasoline car, you didn't care.
Sure.
You just went to the pump and you filled up when you were close to empty, and you just kept on that treadmill and kept doing that. But with an EV, you really start to clue into how much money it's costing me and how far do these electrons actually last. And
I think if yeah, sorry, I interrupt, but if Toyota could crank up that factory and sell 100,000 RAV4 primes next year, the next car those people buy is probably going to be a pure EV. That's 100,000 more EV buyer, because they'll get it after, like you said, after they start driving.
Mhm.
And
Which is
And-
exactly why
What?
you won't see 100,000 RAV4 primes next year.
no, this is exactly
Because-
why Toyota will release one in 2027, exactly
In
3 years
China.
after.
in China.
3 years after
Right.
the
Well-
lease is up.
Yeah.
Well,
so-
and I think 2 to 3 years we'll see a Toyota branded pure EV, probably on the RAV platform, because that's their #1 platform.
Yeah.
And that will be a pretty significant car. That will probably be the Prius of the
All
mid
electric.
2020s.
Yeah.
And
And don't
like-
forget that these RAV4 primes, once they come off lease, those people that said, well, you know, it's too expensive for me to buy new.
Right.
Now they start saying, hey, now I can buy it used. And then again, trickle down effect.
yeah.
And that same awareness you guys were talking about, like very few people noticed how much more inefficient their vehicles were in the wintertime before the first Prius came out. And then again, even worse, once the Nissan Leaf and the Chevy Volt came out, it's like, oh shoot, I can only go 20 miles if it's below 20 outside. But then they realize then, if they look back at their receipts, for instance, they, oh, my gas car actually did the same thing. And then it opens your eyes as far as energy consumption as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And modern EVs have better HVAC.
Oh, they way do.
systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like almost every single one has a heat pump now.
Heat pump, heated steering wheel, heated seats.
Yeah.
I was going to say for mine, kind of, it's the compact SUV market. The ID4 is what I'm curious to see, because I mean, there's a lot of chatter online, but I'm kind of curious how many sales we'll also see on the roads, right?
Right.
Because along the same lines as the RAV4, right? That will be the vehicle that it's shooting an arrow right into the bullseye of the market, right? It's like here's a
BMW's made some noises about increasing their EV output next year. There's Volkswagen coming to market. It will be interesting to see if the Germans actually do take this seriously, or if they're just doing the Ford thing.
Yeah. You know, it'd also be really nice next year is if they redesign the TPMS logo. Because like every winter, I don't know what people were driving before they had Teslas and hybrids and plugins, but what's this symbol mean? And it's like, you weren't checking your tire pressure at all?
Oh,
it looks like a rough road with an exclamation mark and it's bulging in
Yeah.
the tire.
Yeah. It could be improved.
They could put
Well,
letters that
the
say
one
tire
thing
pressure
I'm-
problem.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I'm kind of not to take away from your individual car discussion, but I'd actually like to see more alternative transportation progress next year. Since I started here, I have been looking for news on electric buses and how progress is going, and also dealing with COVID. And I can count on one hand the amount of stories I've seen focused on that. Mostly just, oh, well, it's going to be expensive and we might lose our routes and everything else. Like, it's always been negative. And things like airplanes. I mean, the logistics of moving shit from A to B costs us tremendously in the environment. And while we're trying to be sustainable in every possible way, a lot of people do not consider the cost of gas to ship your item from Maine down to Kalamazoo. I mean, and when it comes from overseas, you've got the shipping container costs or the flight costs. All of this has an impact. So it would be great to start seeing some movement on those areas. We touched briefly on the sales design for shipping containers that should help with some of that. But the progress, it just feels like it's achingly slow. And I'm over 35. That's practically ancient in human years if you're female. So, I've obviously only got like 2 more months left in life, according to pop culture. I'd like to see some progress in those two.
I'm sorry, Georgia. I have to. You should have seen Russell's face when he realized he was double ancient. If you're ancient,
Okay.
he was.
I might not make it to the end of the show. I mean,
So
But-
to your point, Georgia, I watched a proving ground test of an electric bus this week. They went into the slalom, they went into the noise test, and like it is a really nice looking bus. And all the comments were, it costs so much more than the Prevost. I was like, oh, come on, guys. It doesn't cost as
like
much to
that.
maintain and fuel.
Oh,
Mhm.
We've got to make progress there. And on top of that, I love little things, cute little items. I'd like to see some more cute little electric scooters. I'd like to see some more cute electric motorcycles.
Has
I'm-
Georgia seen the Toyota C Plus?
No, I
I
have
don't
not.
know.
Is
What?
that the 2x2 that stands up, or
No, that's the iRoad.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, the C Plus is just announced. It's for the Tokyo Motor Show. It's this 9 kilowatt hour vehicle with a top speed of 37 miles an hour.
Cool.
Just it's literally
So
just for city driving, campus, industrial parks, that sort of thing.
Well,
Parking,
it's so
parking
funny
enforcement.
because I could go back and look over all my trips to sustainability fairs going back into the early 2000s with like all these unique conversions and 2-seater models and all these different designs. And when it comes to the actual models that are on the market, they're not there. And there's no reason they shouldn't be there because we have a very concentrated population in urban markets. And they don't necessarily need even a 4-door or 2-door sedan style vehicle. What they need is something that can reliably get them from the suburb areas to public transportation and to work. If I'm in New York City, I don't necessarily need a full-on car. But if you gave me a 2-seater or an electric scooter that I could take to, say, from Ozone Park, Queens to the next public transportation hub that I want to get on and go back into Manhattan to go to work and then back again, that's going to work out for me a hell of a lot better than trying to figure out where to park and dealing with traffic in honestly very narrow streets because New York City is kind of an old town and the streets are pretty narrow. And then there's finding parking, and that's $100 and something or $200 a week. So that's another rent I have to think about. We can do better. Oh, see, something like that you could put your kid in. That you could take your kid. You don't have to hell out the big old car.
Yeah,
Also-
like, these are great for like the final destination trips. Like George said, you get to a town by train, you arrive at the train station, your destination is another couple of miles away. Just ride share, pick up one of these, and drive over and then park at whatever the designated spots on the other side of town or wherever your destination may be.
Yeah,
And
as
let's,
a good
let's not-
Oregonian, I have to mention Arcimoto here. I know Russell's not a big fan, but I follow them because they are a local company, and they talk about exactly the same thing that you're mentioning here. It's a 2-seat tandem 3-wheeler, and it's made for that niche, which is actually not that much of a niche because most of the driving is 1 or 2 people, and so that's what they were targeting. And it would be perfect for they're doing it first with rental locations and like city tours and things like that. So really easy to park. You can park in sideways and fit, I don't know, 3 in a parking spot.
Or even to build on what Georgia was saying.
It's not that I'm not a fan, Patrick. It's that
Here comes everybody, get ready to drink.
they've spent more than a decade and they still aren't even they're no closer to getting to their mission, which was to make a really cool, small, lightweight electric vehicle for $11,000.
So to build on what Georgia was saying, if the New York City
Thanks,
Metro would take what Tony showed us that Chicago is trying out asininely in the middle of freaking winter in Chicago, and put on a couple of train cars that have space to mount your bike, they could take in their e-bike and then they could go to the next stop and then they could just ride their bike along the road to their final destination.
Yeah. Or what if you're in a place that relies on tourism and you'd like to keep a lot of the big gas guzzling vehicles out? If you knew that you could book like a great vacation to Dollywood, and when you get off the plane, you can rent a small EV. Hey, everything I've heard is that Dollywood is a fun place to be. I'm not gonna crap on anybody who enjoys it, because Dolly Parton is a freaking treasure, not a national treasure. She is an international treasure. And so you can book that car, you can drive it to your hotel. It's going to be great for you because you have a car that's small, convenient. You're not going to be doing a ton load of shopping. You don't have to haul timber or some shit like that. And great for the town because they don't have to have a ton load of gas guzzlers. They can have a steady population of tourists and visitors that are not having a major impact on their air quality and on the amount of toxic runoff from gas and all that kind of stuff that you get from these standard cars. So I'd like to see more civic infrastructure.
Catalina Island off of LA, isn't it? There's no real cars there, right? It's like golf cars and electric cars.
Yeah.
So to build once again on what George is saying, you can have a modern electric milk float come from the lumberyard or the hardware store with a pallet of your wood that you need for your construction project, and it can be electric because it's a milk float. And look at that! You don't need to own the truck.
That would be cool. That's just like we were talking about with IKEA.
Yeah, with a bike.
So I want to wrap this up, but I do want to add something to this because Georgia brought up COVID has changed everything this year. There's no overstating the impact that this pandemic has had on us. But one of the buzzwords, one of the most talked about things before January of this year was micromobility. And we were seeing an explosion of different cool, sustainable transportation options, from scooters with seats to stand-up scooters to bikes to Arcimoto to Aptera to everybody else. And sadly, along with public transportation, a lot of those conversations have just shut down. Hopefully, my hope for 2021 is that some of that stuff comes back and that we start re-looking at a diversity of transportation options, not just a freaking 3,000-pound car, but other things, other choices for people.
Yes.
So I was going to
John.
say, I know in Canada when the pandemic hit, bicycles were out of stock.
Yeah, e-bikes, absolutely.
Just everything, both just regular powered, like normal powered, and electric. Yeah,
And even
electrically
exercise
assisted.
bicycles because people aren't going to the
if you can't go to the gym, you just go buy a bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people who could barely afford the bus definitely can't afford a bike, new or used.
Yeah.
And now the bus is gone because it's not safe. It's like, and I was just watching several stories about these bread lines, 300-400 cars long, or worse, towns that don't have cars, because it's like New York, people on foot. The line goes around the block. People just back to back with their masks on, waiting for
Not
basic
back to back,
food.
6 feet apart.
Most of them, yes, but
Sometimes.
sometimes waiting on food and getting ready to fight when they realize that there's 600 people in line and 400 meals.
So let's go around the panel. Anybody, I should say, well, I'm going to put everybody on the spot one by one. Any predictions, any thoughts for 2021? Anything you want to say as we wrap this show up? Paul.
It's going to be better than 2020.
You want to stand with that? Because I think that's a strong. Okay, Casey, I'm sorry.
I'm going to say that barring any wild mutations, like what we've seen with the UK virus, if it doesn't become too out of control, I think this will be the year that we start to see some recovery, and hopefully we get back to better than we were, and we have some compassion for our fellow humans, and and that everybody can get back on their feet better than ever.
I hope you're right. Patrick.
So what do I predict? We've seen a few big ice bands from California, from Japan, from the UK. I think those are going to continue. I think we'll see a few more of those in 2021. That's my prediction.
John B.
I don't know. I think maybe charging infrastructure will be a thing. We've got the vehicles
Safe
coming
bet,
in.
John. Safe bet.
Well, I mean, you got the vehicles coming, so
Right.
and charging infrastructure continues. But what I also hope is people remember that like alternative things, like again, bicycles or electrically assisted bikes can take off as well. They're a good form of transportation within the city too, and parking is free. You just chain them up.
And
Make sure
they
you
don't
invest
need
in
to
a
be
good lock.
You don't need an insurance and registration with the bike.
Yes.
Exactly.
Ensure you have a good lock, and make sure that the bike stand can be taken away. Because we have seen people wheel a bike with the stand included, because they just because it wasn't filled in concrete, it was just bolted down, so they just took the
Wow.
bolts out. So the bike's still chained to it, except that
They got a stand as well as a bike.
yeah,
I want my e-bike to have GPS tracking, just like my car.
GPS tracking and an alarm, and just
Yeah.
like the
At least
tow alarm.
less desirable target.
Georgia.
I have no predictions. Humanity will continue to human, sadly. And I'm still waiting for, a blaster, lightsaber. Come on, man. It's 2020s, and I feel very let down by the
Hoverboard?
nature of the weaponry that I'm allowed to buy. So,
And jetpacks.
Here's my jetpack.
Hoverboards.
I don't have my mecha suit. I feel cheated, frankly. And this means comic books and cartoons have lied to me all my life. But I really believe it's humans' fault for this. You guys have not kept up. So I want to see more from you, and I feel that we're holding back here. I want this thing.
I'm on your side. I like that. Mark.
I will point the people with jetpack envy to LAX. There seems to be a lot of jetpacks buzzing around LAX lately. So be
lot of board
careful what you
engineers.
wish for.
We're not working on a movie right now and just thinking, what the hell? I'll just throw in my jetpack.
Exactly. I'll buzz the airport just to get some
right near a
some
major
attention.
international airport.
Yeah. The pilots saying, you're not going to believe this, but there's somebody up here with a jetpack at 2,000 feet. It's like, it's crazy, but it's happening. I certainly hope that over this 2021 year that we all can get this virus thing licked. We've been in this a long time. We've all suffered, and we're all ready for this to be over. I'm hoping that the vaccine can be spread properly and we can get it out to to people that need it the most first, and logistically get this problem licked. And that is my hope. I don't care what happens in 21 beyond that. And I certainly want to thank everyone that has followed us this past year here on What Drives Us. And we appreciate you following and listening and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Thank you very much.
As always, well said, Mr. Coughlin. Predictions. I think I have hopes for 2021. I'm not sure about predictions. I'm hoping that mass transit's going to make a comeback, because mass transit has been pretty obviously impacted by COVID. And mass transit is something we need. And I'm hoping that we're not going to use COVID as a springboard to start eliminating that, because that would be scary. As I just said, I hope diversity, micromobility, e-bikes, regular bikes, whatever they are, that we're helping people get around. And again, not just saying they have to buy a 3,000 pound car.
Yeah.
Let's see. More of a prediction. In 2021, there will be 0 Tesla robotaxis on the road. In 2021, the Tesla stock will probably still be making a lot of people very, very rich.
I hope that one comes true as a Tesla shareholder.
I don't, I don't hope the Tesla stock crashes. That's not my thing. I have other issues with Tesla, but it seems to defy everything and just does what it does. So, I mean, look at the trend. Go ahead and vote against it, because it won't help. Lots of people have been railed about it, and it keeps going more or less up. And with that, I'm going to shut up and hope that, like Mark, that COVID is not our main concern in 2021. Hopefully, as we work through the year, that will be less of a concern. That said, stop gathering together in groups. Don't go out tomorrow night. For God's sake, don't go out tomorrow night. Stay home and don't infect other people. Wear a mask, for God's sake. I mean, they're humans, I don't.
Yeah, it's protecting the other people in your life and the people you're around. It's the mask is more about them than it is you.
Or just a random stranger. How about just would you just go to a supermarket with a 12 gauge and just smoke random people? Because if you think that your freedom is impacted by wearing a mask, that's what you're doing. You're helping to kill other humans. And I get you don't care, but I'm sorry, just Georgia.
No, I just said basically. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, it's on the one hand, I'm going to say something positive about this.
Okay, you do that.
There are far more people trying to do the right thing than there are people doing the wrong thing.
That's a good
And
point.
the people that you see one of the problems with media, and I can say this, I'm in media, is that we focus on the people doing the dumb, crazy, loud stuff because they're more interesting than you good people. Doggo agrees with me.
Yeah, totally.
So you get the wrong impression. And the problem is that it's that 1% of the population are mutants. So suddenly we have like millions of mutants, and when you do the math, it works out. Yeah, we might have 1% really awful people who just don't care enough to quell the selfishness and just put on a mask and socially distance. So that's why they're a problem. And they're loud, they're getting a lot of attention, but there's far more of you doing the right thing. What you got to stop doing, though, people doing the right thing. I know you love your friends. I know you love your family. I know they got tested last week. They swear they're in a bubble, and they just want to meet up and let's hug or just get a haircut. Stop it.
Yeah.
Please.
We're so close. Yeah, don't die now.
Don't
you don't
do
want to
it
be the
now.
last one to die of this thing.
there's too many stories coming out of people who did the right thing and they got tested and they went and they just had to say goodbye to grandma and grandpa, or they needed a haircut and their sister totally was in a bubble and they're masked and they were in a house for only a few hours and so is dead now. That's what's going on. So there's far more of the mistakes being made on that variety. So stop cutting yourself some slack. Stop believing that you can make just one little exception. Wear your mask, stay home, do lots of Zoom and Skype calls. Go out and visit each other I went out and I did like a round, did a thing where I just dropped off Christmas gifts and waved to people from outside. And they were over by their house, 10, 15 feet away, wearing masks. Because I want to see my friends. But you know what I want to see most? I want to see them maskless later.
Yes.
So I'm fine with this distance.
I want to add real quick to that. I want to quote a friend of mine. She says, "We don't all wipe the same," and she was talking about wiping down their workstations at work. And
okay, glad you clarified that.
I was just gonna say,
so there's front
That's
reach,
some
back reach.
Got a show title.
Days.
and so she's like, she's like, I wiped down the workstation, and the person who hot swapped with her before, he said, "Oh yeah, I wiped it down." And she says, "Well, did you wipe the handles? Did you open the door and wipe underneath the?" And so she's like, "We don't all wipe the same, honey." And with that, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm clean, I'm safe," we don't all consider clean and safe to be the same thing. So
Right.
Don't be the last person to die of this crap. We're almost through. Sorry.
Let's do some shout outs and go home. Casey, I'm going to start with you.
Hey, I've got a couple videos for you. YouTube.com/Casey Green. That's KACEYGREEN. I think I did about 3. And as long as Tesla doesn't force me to put out, well, they don't force me. Hey, you must do this. But what's that?
Is that French?
Oh, yes, indeed. They don't hold me hostage and say, "Hey, you must do videos." I do them out of my own, because I want to. But assuming that they don't put anything else out before I get to it, there's going to be a vlog video about what it's like to tow interstate, multi-state with a Tesla, and then I've got a bunch of stuff on my content server that needs to be edited and published. So got a bunch of treats coming for you. YouTube.com/Casey Green, KACEYGREEN. Check it out.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guzik.
Check out my website, boulderh.com, if you're looking for a hybrid or EV or a couple of regular cars we have on there. Or you need your hybrid or EV serviced in Colorado. Check us out. boulderh.com or boulderhc.com.
As a happy Boulder H customer, I highly recommend. Do check it out. John B.
No, just shout out all the new the viewers out there. Made it through 2020. Happy New Year. We'll see you all in the new year. And thank you to all the new subscribers that are still watching with us. That you stuck around. You thought it was a good show, and you're still here with us. So thank you.
Well said, sir. Well said. Mr. Coughlin.
Just to build on John's sentiment, if you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up on the video. Press that subscribe if you haven't done it already. And we will see you in 2021. Thanks so much for watching.
We will see you in 2021. Let's see who.
Well, actually, we won't see them, but they'll see us.
See us.
We'll see you in the comments.
Yes.
Patrick, did I?
I have not gone yet. I will
Go,
do my
Patrick.
shout outs. So 2020 was a dumpster fire of a year, definitely. But one thing we did see was we all went into lockdown in like March. And then like in April, maybe, we saw some awesome photos of clear skies, incredible views. It was a view on how great a world we could have if we weren't all driving around in fossil fuel powered vehicles all the time, emitting smog and horrible other carcinogens and noxious fumes. And so that was one little bright spot that I hope is something we can grasp onto and strive towards in all of our carbon footprints. And then Georgia mentioned hauling goods around. So I tried to address that in an article that I have coming out on January 1st on carswithcords.net. And I called it going from diesels to D-cells. Yes. And so right now hauling is mostly done with diesel engines, diesel fuel. And if you want torque, electric's the way to go. But do we have the battery tech to get that as far as we need to? So I try to go through that whole evolution of hauling, and when are we going to see boats carrying freight? When are we going to see electric planes? I map out like the next 40 years of electric transportation, and we'll see how accurate I am. But go and tell me where you think I'm right and where you think I'm wrong. January 1st, carswithcords.net. Check it out.
Definitely go argue with Patrick. And Georgia, last and definitely not least.
Well, 2020, I started with you guys, so thank you all for making me feel welcome to blather mindlessly on your show.
I wouldn't say
And
mindlessly.
just in case. But it's been a great time, and I've enjoyed it. Hopefully, you've enjoyed some of my comments and insights I bring in from my background. Hey, if you have not yet subscribed, though, don't forget to do that, because What Drives Us really would love your subscriptions. It's free, and you can always turn off the notifications. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe to Tesla Life and Casey Green's channels too, because frankly, they give us some good stuff here, and then they go on their channels and they do great stuff that you can have. So don't forget to do all that. While you're at it, toss a coin to Russell's GoFundMe for What Drives Us. Toss a coin to your eVeer. We still need a little bit more for that computer for recording, and that would be fabulous. It would be a great way to close out the year for us. Thank you so much. Stay safe, wear a mask, socially distance, and while you're at it, don't worry about any damn calories. Just eat yourself silly. Treat yourself. It is New Year's Eve. Calories do not matter. Go for it.
There you go. Thank you, Georgia. Very well said. Very well said. I'm going to, I'm going to move on and get our announcements done. As always, thanks to Michael Mannering for his amazing theme music. At the end of this year, if you haven't already, go buy a song from him anywhere but CD Baby. You can all over the place. Michael Mannering, we thank him for him allowing us to play his music for free because we don't have a music budget. So
Yeah, buy it directly at manthing.com and you cut out the middleman.
there you go.
Right.
Support Michael. We appreciate it. And as Georgia and Mark both said, the best way to support the show is to subscribe, sign up for notifications, and maybe even share the link to the show with some of your friends over the years. Once again, do be safe tomorrow. We need every single one of you back next year watching the show, please. So stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you in 2021. And until next time, download us to find out what drives us. Happy New Year, everybody.